Code Machines by Bruce Watson Odyssey. On the sands of Iwo Jima Island, any other World War II code machine would have been too slow to use in the heat of battle, but the Marines had highly mobile cryptographs, each with 2 arms, 2 legs, and an unbreakable code. Nastosi Fanzi Debe Shida da Nessa Kin Shush Waloki Moasi Lin Aki. Ordinary Marines listening to this babble were as baffled as Japanese soldiers intercepting their messages. Had they spoken Navajo, they would have recognized the words mouse, turkey, sheep, uncle, ram, ice, bear, ant, cat, horse, intestines. But what could such nonsense mean? To the Navajo code talkers, the first letter of each word spelled out Mount Surabaki. Other code filled in the announcement Iwo Jima was under American control. The Navajo code talkers were unique in cryptographic history. From 1492 to 1945, more than 400 code talkers stormed the beaches of the Pacific Islands. Instantly encoding and decoding messages, they helped Marines win the war in the Pacific. Even today, their code remains one of the few in history that was never broken. In Navajo, memory is everything. When World War II began, hundreds of Navajo men volunteered to fight. Most had never been off the reservation, a high, barren plain stretching across Arizona, Utah, and New Mexico. There they lived as separate nation, as many still do today. The reservation had no electricity or indoor plumbing, and only a few schools. Most Navajo herded sheep and bought from the government trading posts what little they needed and could not make. They spoke some English, but the business of their daily lives was conducted in their own language. Among languages that were spoken by only tens of thousands of Americans, Navajo was the language least likely to be known to foreigners. The language was entirely oral. Not a single book had ever been written in Navajo. The Navajo Code was proposed by a non-Navajo, Philip Johnston, the son of missionaries on the reservation. Marine officers were skeptical at first. American armies had used other Indian languages to send messages during World War I. Yet because the ancient dialects had no words for machine gun or tank, the experiment failed. Johnston had a better idea, a language combined with a code. Making a code. The Navajo language contained no words for the horrors of war. Bomber, battleship, grenade, all were terms foreign to the Navajo. But in making their code, the Navajo soldiers rooted it, like their lives, in nature. They named military planes after birds. Genie, Navajo for chicken hawk, became dive bomber. Naishja, meaning owl, meant observation plane. They named ships after fish. Lotso, meaning whale, was the code word for battleship. And Beshlo, ironfish, meant submarine. To spell out proper names, the code talkers encoded a Navajo zoo. Marines spell out abbreviations with their own alphabets, which begins Abel, Baker, Charlie, the Navajo version being Wolaki, Shush, Moasi, meaning ant, bear, cat. Finally, code talkers created a clever term for friends and enemies. Lieutenant was translated as 1 silver bar. Mussolini, Italy's fascist dictator, was Adiyats in Tosh, big ground chin. Hitler became Dangalchi, mustache smeller. Test time. With just 400 words encoded, the Navajo put their cryptology to the acid test. They handed a message to Navy intelligence officers who spent 3 weeks trying and failing to decipher it. Then, armed with the code and M1 rifles, a few dozen code talkers shipped out to the Pacific. 2 more remained behind to teach the code to other Navajo recruits. Between invasions, the code talkers convened to encode new battle terms. Before the war ended, several were killed in action, yet they transmitted thousands of messages without error, in a language that needs no decoding. Marines Major Howard Connor assessed their contribution. Without the Navajos, Connor said, the Marines would never have taken Iwo Jima. Cryptographs, code makers. Skeptical, convened means gathered. Number 5. Read the excerpt from the passage below. On the sands of Iwo Jima Island, any other World War II code machine would have been too slow to use in the heat of battle, but the Marines had highly mobile cryptographs, each with 2 arms, 2 legs, and an unbreakable code. How does the introduction about crypto, cryptography in World War II add to the presentation of information in the text? A. It lets readers know that they'll be learning about how Americans developed lightweight machinery using Navajo code that was easily transported in the midst of battle. B. It previews the 3 main areas the author will describe later in the text: why the Navajo language was selected, how it was changed into code, and how effective it was. C. It makes the reader curious about the rest of the passage by giving them one riddle-like piece of information about how the Marines were able to encode and decode messages efficiently when the other technology couldn't. D. It lets the reader know that the author organized the text by comparing and contrasting the benefits and challenges of using coding machines versus using code talkers during battles. Number 6. How does paragraph 6 add to the central idea of the text? A. It demonstrates that the Navajo men were initially ill-equipped for war due to the remote nature of their tribe, and shows why the Navajo were unlikely candidates for the job of code talkers. B. It helps the reader sympathize with the Navajo by learning about the harsh living conditions the tribe faced in the early 20th century and how they adapted to survive. C. It provides the reader with additional context about the Navajo's isolated existence to help them understand why the tribe's language was unknown to many people, and backs up the author's claim that the language was a good choice for transmitting secret messages. D. By describing how the Navajo had a limited knowledge of English, it illustrates the author's point that it is not important to learn English in order to contribute to society in the United States. Number 7. Read the quote from the passage. Nastosi Thanzi Dibe Shida Danesta Tkin Shush Walaki Moasi Lin Aki. Select the 2 best statements for why the author chose to include this sentence. A. To provide the reader with an example of Navajo code so the author could later explain how the Navajo code worked. B. To provide the reader with Navajo words for mouse, turkey, sheep, uncle, ram, ice, bear, ant, cat, horse, and intestines. C. To showcase one of the most important Navajo codes used during World War II. D. To give the reader the experience of trying to understand the Navajo code. Doing this helps the reader better understand through their own experience why the code was so difficult to break. E. To provide the reader with a Navajo code that they can use to communicate secretly with family and friends. Number 8. What is the most likely reason the author included the heading, "In Navajo, memory is everything"? A. To let the reader know that this section will discuss the ways Navajo use their memory to help them in their daily life. B. To help the reader understand the cause behind why the Navajo choose to live without plumbing or electricity. C. To indicate to the reader that the history and memories of the Navajo tribe discussed in the section is important to the Navajo who are alive today. D. To stress how important it was to the Navajo Code project that the Navajo's language was based entirely on memory and never written down.